Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And last week for me has been extremely busy in real life, so not really much to say. I did play a little bit of EVE Online, but it's mostly been maintenance. I actually didn't continue to do more stuff for the agency. I also don't think that there was any point to that. Once you get the Tengu skin, that is pretty much it, I think, unless I'm wrong. We'll see when it ends next week, of course. And then we're just waiting for the August release. I do look forward to all of those changes when it comes to exploration, so that the signatures will become persistent even when you dock, undock, and when you jump through different systems. That should be extremely helpful if you're holding longer exploration sessions and you actually want to check back on some of the systems that you did first. So yeah, very nice little change that should be coming in the August release, together with, of course, the end of the captain's quarters. So we'll see how we'll do EVE Talk after that, but for now let's get started. We are here for the market, of course, and as always we'll start with plex at 115. So there we go, and let's go to plex. Let's take out the filters so that we can see what's happening around Jita as well. And these are currently being sold for 3,155,000 ISK. The buyers are just above 3 million. So this is down a little bit, so we can clearly see that there is an inflection point. The median daily prices are going down, and the 5-day moving average is crossing the 20-day moving average. Now, I didn't do any checks on this. Maybe CCP is holding some sort of a sale that is helping this, but this was also, in my opinion, unsustainable. Going up to 3.5 million straight up like that in the last few weeks or so was just not sustainable. So at some point we will, of course, go back down. That's what's happening at the moment. The question is, how far down can we go, and then what are your expectations towards the winter expansion? So I think that if this has enough momentum and if this can break 3 million, then maybe it could be a good idea to buy a couple of plex if you're planning to then sell them towards the winter expansion. Otherwise, I'm not really sure. This is actually a pretty sharp drop all of a sudden. We lost a few percentage points here all of a sudden, and this seems to have enough momentum. So we'll see how it works out here. Let's see how low we have to go. In Jita, they are going for 3,240,000 ISK. So from 3,100,000, yeah, that's almost 100,000 ISK in difference here between perimeter and Jita. So there is obviously a little bit of competition starting to come in as well, while Jita is holding back a little bit. And so a lot of this action here for the buyers especially, I think you go, well, actually not that much extra in buyers. When it comes to the buying of plex, just above 3 million. Let's hope that we can push even lower and that we can actually spot an investment opportunity. This should give some of the people that are looking to plex their accounts a little bit more breathing room, although they are still quite expensive, of course. Let's take a look at the training certificate. That one is also seeing a little bit of an inflection point, but already hesitating at the tail end. So that could be bad news for people that are looking for plex to go even lower here. The training certificates are definitely hesitating at 1.4 billion almost here in Jita Station, a little bit below that in perimeter and New Caldari and Josemeto. So just a couple of jumps out in the player owned trade hubs. We are going for 1,390,000,000 pretty much for a multiple pilot training certificate. The buyers just below 1.3 billion ISK. Still decently expensive, of course, a little bit of a pushback, but we can already see the hesitation at the tail end. For the skill extractors, you of course will have that same inflection that we had with plex, 5-day moving average crossing 20-day moving average on the downside. Median daily prices still going down here, which means that they are currently being sold for 358 million ISK. The buyers are at 351 though, so that margin is closing. I do think that there is a limit to how much lower we're going to go for plex. I'm just hoping that volumes can make up for all of this a little bit and can actually fill all of these orders that are still well above 3 million ISK, but well above, not by that much anymore, and that we will eventually be able to push through that. But that's probably a bit of a tall order to make. A lot of investors will be looking to buy just above 3 million already. So if you want in on that, you'll need to keep a very close eye on the price when it's actually going to bounce back up. So the skill extractors, of course, doing something very similar, and the difference 358 million in the player-owned trade hubs, and in Jita 366 million ISK for the sellers of these skill extractors. So a bit of pressure on this one, but considering the buyers of extractors are not budging too much from the 350 million mark, I don't think that will go below that, unfortunately, which is bad news for Plex as well, because that will translate in all likeliness to a bottom for Plex as well, maybe at like 3 million or something like that. For the large skill injectors, we have this inflection as well, so Plex price, of course, dictating the margins for those skill point farmers quite a little bit, and this gives them the room to put them up at a slightly cheaper price. 786 million ISK for the sellers, and in Jita stations we are at 815 million. Yeah, you can clearly see this is something that I do like about these numbers. You can see that a lot of the cutting edge action, a lot of the new action, especially in these items that are Plex related, is now happening in the trade hubs that are owned by players here. So the driving down of the price from 815 million, which is where Jita starts, and the first few sell orders start as well in the trade hubs, but the bidding down here is all happening in perimeter for these large skill injectors, down to 786 million ISK, and then the buyers are at 767. Again, that margin closing quite quickly, I think, does indicate that we won't really keep going down the same way that we've been going up for, let's say, the last 2 months or so. There is going to be a bottom here that will form, and actually pretty soon 767 million, so probably at 770 or something like that, there will definitely be a stop on the decrease in prices. It's up to you guys then to decide, of course, whether or not you want to invest in these things. And then finally we have the small skill injectors that also knows this little inflection point, but here again at the tail end we can already see the hesitation of the median daily prices. Today are already back up towards the 20-day moving average, currently selling for 158 million ISK, the buyers at 154. This is exactly what I was talking about. When the sellers come very close to these buy orders, you'll have this hesitation and you'll have this move back up from the prices, where I think regular market forces, which at the moment it's a lot of demand for all of this stuff, will probably drive the prices back up. So maybe a little bit of breathing room created for some players, but I don't think it's going to last too long. I thought, first of all, if you look at this Plex chart and look at the median daily prices, it looks like maybe we have a little bit more to go. But if you look at all the other items, I do think we'll hit the bottom pretty quickly, and that unfortunately it won't be more than one of these pullbacks as well here, early July and early May, or early June I should say, that were absorbed very quickly, and then we were on our way back up again. So that's my expectation. There's a little bit of hope because this has quite some momentum and it needs to pull back quite a bit from that latest rally, but I don't think it's going to be all too big, and then unfortunately back up. So let's move on to some minerals next at 850. There we go. And titanium, you may already have seen it on the ticker here, was actually going back up towards 558. Now we have a strange data point here at 4 ISK. I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact, but if we take out the sellers, because we're, as you can see here, 9 jumps, 8 jumps, that's not very representative of the Jita markets, and in volumes as well, you can see less than 1 million every time. Then you go to Jita, we're talking 40 million, 1.3 billion. They are selling for, well, 558 when I was checking, 556 for the sellers at the moment, and then the buyers are coming in at 543, so well above 5 ISK. We're managing to maintain that quite nicely. sellers even above 5.5, so not so bad. But what you do notice here, of course, sellers above at 5.6, it's 1.6 billion, 1.3 billion just below that, and then the competition is already coming in, so they will probably push the price back down for the sellers below 5.5 in pretty short order. But Tritanium is staying decently strong. All of this relatively speaking, of course, because of the changes to mining that have happened with the Ascension expansion. So historically speaking, I would say that maybe we should have been at like 6.5 ISK here, but now being at 5.5 for Tritanium is probably not that bad for the miners, especially in high sec that often don't have a lot of choice when it comes to what they're mining. So Tritanium holding strong, well above 5. What I would need to see is, because this, you can clearly see that we went from less than 4 ISK to 5.5, not a bad increase in price, and so not bad increase in performance for miners. I would like to see the other high sec minerals follow suit at some point, increase in price a little bit to give us a bit more of a bang for our time spent mining. But Pyrite has not been doing that. You can clearly see here that we are still staying between 5 and 6 ISK at around 5.5, and we're just hovering around this price point. It tried early June here, but that increase in price above 6 ISK was basically immediately squashed by a dumping of massive stocks of this Pyrite, and so it's having a tougher time on some of the other ones. So Pyrite currently selling for 557, which is the same price as Tritanium, and it's actually a lot trickier to get the same amounts of, or I think a lot more time consuming to get the same amounts of Pyrite as Tritanium. From that perspective, this should be a buy opportunity. Buyers are at 533, which is actually lower than the buyers of Tritanium itself. So this is an inverted situation, and just the normal volumes that you get out of the ores that you mine should put this at Pyrite being too low or Tritanium being too high, but I'm basically hoping that that's not the case. Next up, we've got Mixon. Is that being able to stall its descent? Yeah, it's actually bouncing off of the 65 ISK price mark quite a little bit, and here back at 70 so far today. So 74 ISK for the sellers, 67.3 for the buyers. That is not bad. That is good news for high sec miners. A second high sec mineral that is actually, in this case, Mixon, that was still very strong and is still remaining really strong, even compared to the before Ascension prices. It's actually bouncing back a little bit to more than 70 ISK on the seller side. Very good news, I think, for miners here. You know what to focus on. Unfortunately, it's still Mixon. It's been Mixon since April, and even since the Ascension expansion, it's basically been focus on your Mixon sources, because you're still getting enough ISK out of that compared to the pre-Ascension expansion prices. That this is going to be your most efficient way of mining, especially in high sec. So still maintain that focus and try to keep that up here. But let's see what Isogen is doing. Yeah, this Isogen and Pyrite, those are the two minerals that I would love to see go up a little bit. Maybe have Isogen get towards the 60 ISK mark. In fact, Isogen used to be more expensive than Mexilon, so I would like to see that one really push back up. It's just not happening. It's still hovering at around the 50 ISK mark. Sellers are at 49.78 and the buyers are at 47.63. Not a lot of margin there, but again, still 56 million coming in here. Plenty of orders at more than in the millions, and the buyers there, well, one big buyer of 1.6 billion at 47.42 is going to keep the price from crashing all that much lower, but it's still definitely, I would say, crazily low prices in Isogen and Pyrite, especially if you consider the historic difference between Isogen and Mixilon is that Mixilon used to be more expensive, less expensive than Isogen, and it's the same between Tritanium and Pyrite here. So that is something to maybe keep in mind. There have been some war drums that I've seen beating on Reddit, although this may be over before it gets started. But if something big happens and we do get some major capital and super capital losses, there may be a bit more demand coming in here, which will drive up the prices. But I think if that does happen, then there is a good chance that they'll also normalize the relative price points between all of these minerals, and this should be very good news for Isogen and for Pyrite, of course. It remains a decently big gamble, because something drastic does need to change in the mineral markets on the demand side of things. But if that does happen, this inverted situation compared to before Ascension, right, 65, 70 ISK for Exxon, Isogen going for 80 to 90 ISK, and now that's inverted, and it's the same for Tritanium, 6 to yeah, let's say around 6 ISK, and a Pyrite used to be 9 or 10 ISK, something like that. So this is something to keep in mind, that I don't think, if at some point we normalize across the board, is going to stay in this situation. Moving on to the Nullsic minerals, let's start here with Zydrine, basically decently flat as well, just above 1000 ISK. Not much to say here, 1012 for the sellers, 973, 974 for the buyers. So you can still pick up Zydrine for less than 1000 ISK, but not by that much, which is a good price, I think, especially if you're planning to use it. Look for a slightly lower prices, closer to 900 ISK itself, if you're looking to invest in Zydrine, in my opinion. And then here we've got Megasite flat once again, slightly under pressure here, but at least the situation here is normal. 1185 for the sellers, 1138 for the buyers, a little bit more expensive than Zydrine. That is actually normal. And then considering what's happening there, I think Morphite is in the same situation. Yeah, a bit of increased volumes, slightly down in price again towards 9000 ISK, 9375 for the sellers, 8781 for the buyers. Pretty cheap Morphite again, historically speaking, but all of that is needs patience if you're looking to do investments in these, because, well, we need something drastic to happen for these to actually pull back up or down, but I don't think CCP is gonna do anything to push the mineral market even lower. So yeah, keep all of that in mind. In my opinion, if I would have to take a gamble in the mineral market, I would look at Pyrite and I would look at Isogen, just because of their unnatural situation compared to the other high-sec minerals. Let's move on to some PI next at 1640. There we go, and we'll start with construction blocks here as always. Well, back on its average and staying around there, so this is quite interesting. Sellers of construction blocks at 12,300 ISK, the buyers are at 11,354. I would say the buyers are probably a little bit below average and the sellers are right around the average for construction blocks. So after pretty wild May here, up to 15,000 ISK, we've normalized in the construction block market. I think if you're looking for that buy opportunity, considering more demand across the board for PI can be expected related to structures, then I do think that this could be your opportunity to buy some of these PI materials. Let's take a look at consumer electronics, slowly edging down, 13,700 ISK though, so I would say that it's still above average, especially for the sellers. 14,390 ISK for the sellers of consumer electronics, I would say still definitely above average. The buyers at 13,600 also still above average, but I think that it's going to continue to be under pressure, and if we reach 12.5 to 13,000 ISK, we will be back at an average price for consumer electronics. If that happens and this manages to pull down some of the other ones as well, we'll probably see an investment opportunity. If not, it is possible again that that this will be it for the going down in price of PI. It's early August, so we still have a whole month. I think that it could happen in, and then September oftentimes also still has some summer vibes when it comes to the market. You can clearly see that right here. Last year, September, October, November was actually a serious downtrend. So it's something that I always say. I am looking for investment opportunities in PI, absolutely, but I'm not going to jump the gun. I'm not going to spend billions all of a sudden on a single product or something like that. Do so in a pretty patient way, I would say, because I do think that while on some of them opportunities may be here already, there may be better opportunities on the horizon as well. Let's see what coolants are doing. So last week we saw that they did go up quite a little bit, from slightly below average prices at 11,000 ISK to maybe a little bit above that to 13,000 ISK, but here we're again normalizing, I think, on our way back down. 13,350 for the sellers, still a little bit above average, but 12,100 for the buyers is probably right around the average for coolants. So I don't think that we should expect this to explode all of a sudden, although you never know, of course. Sometimes the PI market does do some crazy stuff, but I would say that it's very likely that we'll basically go back to average prices for coolants as well if this momentum holds up. Enriched uranium next actually worked on a double jump up to 17,500 ISK here, which was quite surprising, and I think mostly against the trend, but we can see here at the tail end that we're probably going to go back down pretty smoothly. 16,250 for the sellers, well above average, but buyers 14,200, quite a wide margin, so they want to pull that price back down for enriched uranium, and supplies like 293,000 units and 260,000 units are of course going to help with that. So yeah, enriched uranium, it was the right time to sell. People are coming in with the sell orders. If supply keeps trickling in, we will slowly go back down, and yeah, hopefully, or I think it's actually still decently likely that we'll reach average prices again. Next up, we've got the integrity response drones here, so definitely related to construction of structures. Median daily prices slightly going down, but definitely not going back down below 2.5 million, I don't think. 2.6 million, a bit above that for the sellers, 2.55 million for the buyers. Yeah, that great buy opportunity is not there just yet, but 2.55 million is not that much more. So if you need them, if you know you're gonna use them, then you might want to look into buy orders already. But again, don't buy everything all of a sudden. You're gonna jolt the market too much, I think, with those kinds of demands. Just take your time here, try to read the market and try to strike at the right times. This, I think, considering median daily prices at the moment, may be the right time to pick some of those up. Next up, the mechanical parts, actually going back up here, very similar to coolants just last week. So last week we were at the top of an increase in price over about a month. And here for the mechanical parts, we're doing the same, even over a bit more than a month, going from a little bit below average prices, 10,000 ISK at the very bottom, to 13,300 ISK, slightly above average again. 12,800, I would put that slightly above average as well for the buyers, because mechanical parts are so easy to produce. Very interesting also to note, I think, that both mechanical parts and enriched uranium, which is at a high point but coming under pressure, and coolants are tied to fuels, so keep in mind that this could have an impact and make fuels a bit more expensive here. Next up, we've got the nuclear reactors, also going back up in price here a little bit, but this chart is a little bit not what we'd like to see. There we go. So bottoming out at 75,000 ISK and already back up to towards 130,000 ISK. That's quite a violent switch. 120,000 for the sellers, 111,000 for the first buyer here. Definitely, I would say, above average prices for nuclear reactors, but quite a bit of volatility on this chart. This is a very interesting one where you have a decently recognizable bottom. If you see the chart go below 90,000 ISK, which is it has already done like 3 times in the last year here, even 4 times if you want to count this one, then yeah, you have these very clear buy opportunities, but you can see that the volatility exists in these nuclear reactors. 120,000-130,000 ISK is definitely possible in pretty short order. That makes this a very interesting market if you're looking to do those active trades. And yeah, early July you had a nice buy opportunity, and right now you already have a sell opportunity from, let's say, 90,000 ISK to 120,000 ISK. That's a pretty cool 30%, not so bad. 30% compared to the buy, of course, that you should have made in July. So this is actually a very interesting and nice addition, I think, to the PI chart. If we would see volatility die down here, then I think that would be bad news for the entire PI market. But as long as this volatility maintains, I think that there is hope for the rest of the market as well to see some volatile times here, which is good for people that like to take a look at the market and find the right opportunities, of course. So oxygen was also going up, so actually managed to go back up to 500 ISK, but is stalling at that price point, which I think is pretty normal. So 520 ISK for the sellers, 461 for the buyers. Buyers probably a little bit above average, but maybe by 10-20 ISK. And then the sellers are, of course, above average for oxygen. Not a bad comeback, I must say. Look at that. after May, June with pretty low price down to 350. I didn't think we would come back above average. I think we would come back towards the average, but managed to stay there because of how easy it is to produce. But no, actually not a bad move here over 3-4 months. Again, showing some volatility in the PI market, and definitely not a uniform market again. So oxygen related to fuels, that does seem to be a theme here. Oxygen, mechanical parts, coolants, enriched uranium, all up. And that's probably going to drive the price of fuel up as well. So robotics, then robotics is proving me wrong. I think you do need robotics in fuel production as well. And this one is not budging from its 100,000 ISK price range here. 110 for the sellers, 101.6 for the buyers. A little bit up from last week, but not by that much. And yeah, different picture in this PI market, which makes it quite interesting. Looking for those opportunities for robotics here. I think that this is pretty interesting that we're stalling at this price range, and I would say that these buyer orders may be in the right spot if you're looking to make those investments. Bit of a gamble, I admit it, but I don't see these robotics drop off to 90, 80,000 ISK or anything like that anytime soon. If that would happen, of course, if you see 90,000 ISK here come into play, then you know what to do, of course. Rocket fuel next went to a very low price point for less than 10,000 ISK. Tried to move back up towards the average, right between 11 to 12,000 ISK, maybe around 12,000 ISK here would be an average price, but is not managing to maintain that. 11,500 for the sellers, 11,000 for the buyers, definitely below average. So how much do we need for the buy orders? Yeah, we don't even need that much. Look, this gets filled, this gets filled. Then we are at 10,500. That gets filled. We're at 10,000 ISK. So yeah, keep a close eye on this one. I think with just a bit of effort, although this is 311,000 units, that's quite a lot. But rocket fuels may come into play here when it comes to buying. May already be into play when it comes to buying as well, because we are talking about prices that are below almost the entire chart here. So rocket fuel looks interesting to me. Next up, self-harmonizing power cores. This is quite unfortunate for those people that want to prepare for their structures, because this one is not going back towards the 2 million range, which I would have hoped it would. But no, it's actually climbing up to 2.5 million, 2.37 million for the sellers, 2.23 million for the buyers, or 2.23 million for the buyers. Definitely up in price from the bottom in July here, and it's apparently not stopping. So there may be quite a bit of buying happening here in preparation for structures, maybe related to the war as well, that may be happening or is heating up a little bit in Nalsik. If you don't know anything about that, I don't know a lot either, but I know that we're talking Goons War moving a pretty sizable capital force to help test against PL and like Darkness or something like that. Again, I don't know the parties, but there's definitely some action brewing there that may have their impacts, and structures are basically frontline units now when it comes to wars, because they're what give you a foothold in enemy territory. And I've also clearly seen in my blueprint copy business that in the last 2 weeks, interest has shot up. The blueprint copies for the Raitaru and the Astraus have gone up in price quite significantly, in fact. And the number of blueprint copies that I'm selling has shot up quite substantially all of a sudden as well. So there is this renewed interest in or renewed demand in structure related stuff, and is apparently keeping self-harmonizing power cores from going back down. Superconductors next. Here I don't have that much to say. 13,000 is a little bit above average. So 13,500 for the sellers, definitely above average. 12,600 for the buyers, maybe a touch above average, but not by that much. Decent margin here as well. This could start to put pressure on superconductor prices, which at the tail end of the chart you can see that it's probably starting to do. Test cultures next, still remaining flat. I actually made investments in this one. I need to see that volatility come back. But the longer this lasts, the more likely it is that we will actually see some real volatility, I do think. So this is quite interesting. Test cultures selling for less than 8,000 ISK. Buyers are at 7,500. I think at some point this will come into the crosshairs of investors once again. So buyers 7,500, definitely pretty cheap price, I would say, if you look at this entire chart. Let's make 7,500 visible here. Not bad. I think if we look at the entire chart, you just have to gamble on volatility coming back on this one. And who knows when that will happen here. This seems to be Ascension expansion related, although a little bit delayed. And I think we saw this as well with the actual Citadel expansion before. So maybe the winter expansion could be the time to sell those test cultures. Again, don't go overboard. Don't buy billions and billions of ISK if you don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm definitely not doing that. But if you're looking for PI investments, then test cultures and rocket fuel, in my opinion, look pretty interesting. And finally, we've got wetware mainframes, which is, of course, going to start to follow the self-harmonizing power cores here, not going back down towards the 2 million ISK, but staying at 2.3 million for the sellers, 2.2 million for the buyers. And again, there is increased demand, I would say, when it comes to structure stuff as well, which is well, we'll need to see how it evolves, right? Summertime, in general, I would expect maybe prices to go back down. It is possible that we still have a sort of summer push where actually there is ample supply and not that much demand, but the people that are active are making their preparations for the winter expansion already. And so maybe we'll see another one of those, let's see, where was it? Pullbacks after the summer, right? September, October, November. You can clearly see that in some of those we have these pullbacks after the summer, but then it's not very likely to happen, I think, in structure related stuff, but the fuel related stuff is going up in price almost uniformly. So it's a tricky market to put gambles on or to read, but it makes it an extremely interesting market with a lot of potential, of course, for you to make money. So for this week, I would say the general trend is fuel related PI is definitely up in price almost across the board, which makes mechanical not mechanical parts but robotics look decently interesting from a buying standpoint. And of course, we're also seeing this increased demand for fuel structure related PI as well, which is again showing pretty strong demand, which is not what I was expecting in the summer, but it's really tricky to find those correct buy opportunities at the moment. We still have a ways to go, right, before the winter expansion really comes into play. August, September, maybe even October could be months where we'll see a bit of a downtrend. I'm still hoping for that, and I'm not going crazy with my buying, but if you spot buy opportunities, then I would say do start to take action. I think you'll want to do that. Next up, let's take a look at some Tech 1 chips at 3210. There we go. Still haven't switched them out, but let's be honest, there is not that much to say. A pattern going back up to 200 million ISK. I again think this could be related to Providence making their preparations here. I really do think that that's basically what's happening to some of these Mars ships here, because it's completely counter to everything else that we see in the Tech 1 market. It's, in my opinion, also counter to anything we see in Nullsec. Goon Swarm, I don't know if you saw the video on Reddit, but it was like 5 minutes of just capital after capital jumping through the gate on their way towards their war. That was extremely impressive, but that's not good news for the Tech 1 chip market, of course, because the meta is Tech 3s, faction battleships, and now capital ships being used in such numbers that it makes them look like sub-capital ships. And so for the Tech 1 market itself, the Tech 1 sub-capital market, which is what I'm checking here, of course, no way to sell or buy carriers or anything like that in Jita. This is not good news, because it's completely being pushed out of the Nullsec meta, where, let's be honest, that's where the losses happen, that's where the actual destruction happens, which is pretty important for any market, actually. So the Caracal, you can see that still hovering, going back down below 10 million ISK, 9.7 for the sellers, 9.2 for the buyers. Pretty cheap Caracals here, not much to say. So I think that Amar may be the exception, because of course it is Providence related. If they want to prepare for a war, they'll probably do quite a bit of sub-capital purchasing for Amar ships as well, just as part of, well, their their culture, you could say, in Providence and CVA. So I think that that's basically what's happening. But the Caracal not going anywhere. Here is the Coveter, again not going anywhere, just staying just above 25 million ISK, 26.8 for the sellers, 23.6 for the buyers. And sometimes people go for the straight for the sellers, but sometimes people are impatient and actually sell to those buyers as well. So this is definitely a small market, less than 100 ships a day. In fact, probably more around 40 to 50 a day. That is extremely stable at the moment, just not going anywhere, and actually pretty cheap. The Ferox next. This is one of those that is actually being flown. I think it's Test that does like to fly Feroxes from time to time. Test deployed and a part of this war. So this is what happens from time to time, of course. 370 of them all of a sudden in a single day, where normally you get maybe 50-60 of those. That does shoot up the price. Currently we're out of Feroxes and they are being sold at 56.5 million. I think they basically bought everything below 60 or something. No, maybe anything below this one actually, because 59 days. I'm not sure if it's a new one or not, but yeah, Feroxes, a big buy happening. That's probably Nullsec Alliance related. There are these exceptions, of course, that do happen. And then the real question is just how quickly is this gap going to get filled, and the answer is pretty damn quickly. But this is a pretty massive buy here, which creates an opportunity for Feroxes if you happen to have them, or you can produce them in short order. Then definitely look into doing so, because at the moment, of course, you're getting a nice margin on this one. I think in fact this is also a suggestion. Someone said why don't you add the Ferox in here, and awesome suggestion, of course, because well, it is indeed part of Nullsec doctrines in some alliances, and as a result you do have these slight opportunities, pretty much the only opportunities in the Tech 1 market in the last year or so, definitely since Ascension. Hurricane next, same story. That is amazing. What a week. I'm being proven wrong on all fronts here. Here is the Hurricane, all of a sudden, let's say triple the volumes, of course, pushing the price up to 79 million for the sellers, 52 million for the buyers. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens by next week, of course. But Hurricane's also apparently used by someone in Nullsec, because I don't think any high-sec marketeer or anything like that is going to risk that type of a purchase. So very, very interesting here. Another one that goes up all of a sudden. It's a battle cruiser, right? Standard battle cruiser, standard battle cruiser. Interesting that that might be the meta. Here is the Maelstrom next. This may look like another really big jump up to 200 million, but I think here we're talking just any move up, or well, you can see from the volumes that it's definitely not the same thing. And anyone deciding on Maelstroms, whether it is I'm gonna grab one from the sellers or I'm gonna sell one to the buyers, is actually having a drastic impact on the chart here, because well, if one of those completely wins out on a day, then you've got 200 million on the seller side. But if a couple are being sold straight to the buyers, then you've got 170 million, which is right here on the chart here. So this is why you have these fluctuations, which is probably one or two ships that can do that in the Maelstrom market. So this is like fake volatility. It's not an opportunity where you're going to be able to make up 100 million on a big trade or anything like that. It's just such a dead market that there is volatility when on a single day it's one of the two that wins out. So this is a bit weird, but apparently at the moment a couple of people came in and bought some Maelstroms from the sellers, which leaves us with maybe 20 of them on the market. Next up here we've got the Megatron, which went pretty damn low, 250 million. At some point you bounce back a little bit from that, so it's 161 for the sellers, 140 million for the buyers. Obviously I don't think anyone is bringing lots of Megatrons at the moment. Next up we've got the Prophecy. Ooh, I thought we maybe would see a bit of a jump up as well. Prophecy fleets have been a thing in the past, but that's a big nope. So we're still at less than 50 million for the sellers and 45 million for the buyers. There's a decent amount, so maybe if the battle cruiser trend for Ferox and Hurricane is any sign, Prophecy may be next, because it's gonna take some time at least for the market to recover from this, of course. And so yeah, Prophecy, maybe it'll happen. Next up here we've got the Scorpion, under pressure at the moment, going to 140 million, 144 for the sellers, 137 for the buyers. There's just no one buying those. You can see from the volumes that this is pretty abysmal. And finally, again here I should also say that just a little bit of buying, you can see that here can push the price up to 152 million all of a sudden, and if that does win out, then of course you will get a pretty sharp increase in price once again, but this can be done on maybe a dozen chips or so, so this is not really great for if you're actually looking to trade or anything like that. And then the Vexor, just like the Caracal, just basically hovering along just above 10 million ISK, Caracal just below that, 10.01 million for the sellers, 9.5 million for the buyers. So the cruiser market is so easy to produce that, and so well low in volumes that it's basically just stable at these really low prices. Not very good news for the Take One market, but yep, Ferox, thank you very much, whoever it was that told me to add this to the Take One market. Definitely a keeper here. And then the Hurricane, that's nullsec related stuff, definitely. Moving on to the Take Two market at 40.20. There we go. Let's take a look at this here. Of course, a war that may mean some buying of interceptor markets. Here is the Ares, up in price on the chart. Currently, not that many of them, and selling for 25.9 million ISK. So if you took the gambles on some of these buy opportunities, this may be the right time to try and unload some of your Ares, because of course interceptor fleets are very popular, very mobile. It's what third parties are very likely to use from time to time as well to get in on any action in nullsec. So yeah, this one could be interesting to try and sell at the moment. A little bit late to buy, of course. Here's the Claw. That is the prediction coming true for once. So we're empty of those, and 66 million for the sellers of an interceptor. That's not very realistic, of course, but the buyers are up to 30 million ISK, which is quite crazy if you see that just a month ago, and then 3 months ago, and then many times before that you could have bought these for 20 million. So incredible sell opportunity for the Claw here. I hope you took the gamble. I think I did note those two to buy. I'm not sure. I don't think I have any. I think I gambled on stealth bombers rather than interceptors myself, which was of course a pretty big mistake, knowing that Goonswarm does like their interceptor fleets as well. So there you go, look at that opportunity. If you manage to sell any of these close to 60 million, we're talking 200% profit. Not bad at all. And this is, in my opinion, the very showcase that the Take Two market can be a great trade opportunity, but you need that nullsec action in order to make it happen. And this is exactly what's happening right here for the Claw. Next up, we've got the Crow. You do have the volume increase. You just don't see it happening on the chart. 23 million for the sellers, 21.5 million for the buyers. So it's not a uniform thing here. A couple hundred Crows being bought. Market price doesn't budge by that much. The Claw is the great opportunity here so far. Ares next, pretty flat here unfortunately, at around 50 million ISK, 50.3 for the sellers, 44.5 for the buyers. I wouldn't touch that one, to be honest. It would be a major gamble that all of a sudden someone would decide on a batch of Areses for some reason. The Flycatcher here, again, interdictors, yeah, not that much action. You do have 70 million at the moment, and you could have bought them for 60 million not that long ago. But the variations are just not going low enough to really notice those 50 million buy opportunities. So 74 for the sellers, not bad. 62 for the buyers, definitely higher than what I would like to see for the Flycatcher, which looks so great though. Probably, I think, the latest Take Two redesign, or no, it's actually for Take Two you also have the Ishtar, of course, together with the Vexor, but looks absolutely great. The redesigns are nice, and oh, that's maybe one thing I should mention as well. It's a little bit late, of course, but the Rupture is getting a redesign. So if you're looking for that opportunity when it comes to CCP redesign to maybe gamble on something, then look into those Minmatar ships there. Next up here we get the Heretic. actually going down in price despite the increased volumes here. It's going towards 60 million. 57 million for the sellers, 52 for the buyers. Yeah, not much action apparently. Interdictors are not what's being used all that often in Nosec at the moment. Here is the Hound. This, I think I've got a couple of those, so you could have bought these for close to 20 million at least, and now they are up to 26.4 million, so not as good as the Claw obviously, but a slight sell opportunity here in the Hound as well on some Nosec rumblings. The Malediction next. This is not what we'd like to see though. This is obviously overproduction. 56,100 here, 26.5 million. It's not that bad. You could say that this is a sell opportunity, but I don't like the fact that we have these very prolonged stability periods here, which is a very strong indicator of massive oversupply. Manticore next is not volatile enough, but slowly creeping up towards 27 million, I think. Yeah, 27.2 for the sellers, 23.3 for the buyers. You could try to sell if you really had that buy opportunity right here down or something like that for the Manticore. Nemesis also a little bit slow here, creeping up towards the 25 million mark, 24 for the sellers, less than 20 for the buyers. I'd still say if you're looking to get that stealth bomber gamble in, then look for the Nemesis on the buyer side of things. You know, 20 million, not bad, definitely below the entire chart pretty much here, and currently selling for more. So if some stealth bomber fleets do get crushed, then they're very likely to be replaced with Nemesis more than the Hound, because that one's actually already up in price substantially. Purifier next. That one just comes from a big jump up to 30 million, so it's going back down to 25 million. Buyers are at 23. We'd like to see that maybe half a million to a million lower before we really jump in on that. But again, the Nosec rumblings may create more opportunities pretty quickly, so we'll need to keep an eye on that, of course. And finally, we've got the Saber up in volumes, but price not moving from 55 million, 55.8 for the sellers and 51 for the buyers. So that's again a pretty big no. But yeah, the Claw definitely the winner this week in the Tech 2 market, showcasing that when it rumbles in Nosec, you've got the opportunities in the Tech 2 market. Pretty awesome. Next up, we've got some Tech 3 ships at 4630. Let's take a look at that with what's happening in Nosec. I know that the Goons, or the Imperium as they like to call themselves now, like to fly the Jackdaws. So let's take a look here. Confessor up in price to 45 million. Is not that many left anymore. So yeah, purchasing at 30 million would have been a pretty good idea at this point. Definitely some profits to be made here. Increasing volumes as well. So I think we'll see some Confessor fleets being formed in Null as well. Hecate next. Ooh, that's a nice jump up. Look at that one. 55 million ISK for the sellers, 48 million for the buyers, and not that long ago 30 million ISK, and there were hundreds for sale here. So definitely a renewed interest in these incredible sell opportunities. So I think for the Tech 3 market, this is something that you do want to keep in mind here. We've seen this pattern before for the cruisers as well, although not well, actually, yeah, we saw some extreme volatility sometimes in the cruisers too. When you are in that really oversupplied market, psychologically it can be very difficult to say, yeah, I'm gonna buy, because you always get that feeling that the market is still going down and still going down. But as long as you follow that tip of don't go crazy, don't go overboard, but buy them maybe for the destroyers 5 to 10 at a time, and buy a couple of cruisers here and there. Those gambles will eventually pay out pretty damn big, because here from 30 million to 55 million at the moment, definitely not bad, almost 100% in profit right there. So this is for the Tech 3 market. Those massively oversupplied situations, they require patience and they require a little bit of courage to make your move on there. But it shows here once again that this can really pay off quite nicely, and that when you do see these prices, when you've got hundreds upon hundreds of them being sold for 30 million ISK, that this is actually a great opportunity to buy some, not to go crazy and buy hundreds and hundreds of them. If you do that, you're gonna crash this price down in no time. But yeah, this is something where you can basically, I think, try to dollar cost average buy a couple, maybe on a bi-weekly basis or something like that when you're in this situation, and then eventually you will have a nice little stock ready for opportunities like these. The jackdaw next, also going up in price. I told you guys, goons do love to fly these, and they look amazing when I'm in Nulsec. Something big happens and you see a jackdaw fleet swarm around there. Looks absolutely amazing. 76 million ISK for the sellers, 57 million ISK for the buyers. Talk about an incredible opportunity when just a couple of months ago you could have bought these for 30 million. Again, easy 100% profit there. Very, very nice. And I think I'm not sure what my stocks of tech trees are, so that is something that I need to do better. But again, here we're trying to learn these lessons here. Even the Zwepel going up in price, although a bit less, of course. Zwepel going for 60 million ISK, buyers at 44.2 million. So yeah, tactical destroyers, definitely part of the Nulsec meta here, and incredibly nice sell opportunity. Let's take a look at the cruisers next here. This is after the rebalance, you get this volatility, and so here again you do have some opportunities. Legions for 170 million ISK, not so bad, definitely up in price in the last couple of days and maintaining this current price range. So first sign of maybe some stability coming back at the current range here. Same for the Loki, basically hovering at, well, current range though, 225 million ISK. My god, these guys went for 110 or something like that. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. So Loki, incredibly good price at the moment, and the first signs that it's stabilizing a little bit. Of course, you're too late to buy now. Proteus though going down in price quite substantially, 125 million, not all that popular. Is this a buy opportunity? Again, this feels risky, this feels dangerous, so don't go in here and try to buy 50-60 Protei, but one Proteus for 120 million I think could be worth the gamble. And then here the Tengu actually up in price and also showing that first signs that it's trying to find its price range at the current one, around 160 for the sellers, 148.5 for the buyers. So tech tree market finally back, and actually the more interesting part in my opinion is how the tactical destroyers are moving on Nulsec rumblings. A very important lesson I think that we're seeing here, and that we should definitely learn when it comes to tech tree markets. And then finally for the extra product at 5140, I'm gonna just take a look at the Gecko out of personal interest. I've not seen it mentioned that often. It may be not going out of the vibe of people a little bit, but yeah, keep in mind that this Gecko chart, of course, for an investor on a 1-year chart, this looks pretty damn interesting. Starts at 50 million, ends at 80 million. At the tail end here, we're going back down in price a little bit, so 85.5 million for the sellers, 80 million for the buyers. And again, the Gecko, very unique item. You can't just keep producing those from the sandbox. There is a limited number of these, and I would say if I have any really leftover is that I don't exactly know what to do with, I'm gonna probably purchase a couple of Geckos here and there, because that could also be one of those that, as long as you've got the patience, this should go up in price, continue to go up in price like that, unless of course CCP intervenes. But this again is when you have to learn to pace yourself, so that if CCP does intervene and the price crashes down, you actually see this as an opportunity to lower your average costs, and then again have that patience to see that such a period through, which at the moment there are maybe. So this decrease in price is maybe something that I should note now that I think about it, right? As I'm taking a look at the Gecko chart, we know that CCP is working on a lot of extra events at the moment. So first event, the agency, pretty limited rewards, and that's probably the biggest complaint that people have been giving when it comes to the agency. So keep this in mind. There's at least 2 more planned, one around the Alliance tournament and then another one. We know that there's some PvE stuff coming out as well, so if they keep these events going, of course, at some points I would say that if they want to juice up the rewards, then Geckos or Gecko BPCs may be a part of that. So at the moment, I would definitely understand if you're saying, well, I'm not going to buy Geckos right now because the events may be the CCP intervention that we would all fear, and the market may actually agree with that a little bit, considering that we're going back down in price at the moment. So yeah, that is maybe something to keep in mind. But if you're looking for that other unusual store of value that is completely different from pretty much the entire economy and market in EVE Online, then something like the Gecko is very, very interesting, because you can't just create or rat for BPCs of the Gecko. You can't just get more of those. These are very limited, and so you do oftentimes get these very interesting 1 year long increases in price charts that would of course have been really awesome if we bought right here, for instance. So yeah, the Gecko, keep that one in mind, but also keep the events in mind here. So the CCP intervention that may create an actual buy opportunity may be just around the corner as well. That's always the gamble that you take. So again, I'm gonna end because I've said it many times here, but I think it's really important, because you're seeing the Tech 2 market there showing some swings on null stack rumblings. You see the Tech 3 market, that's pretty damn crazy as well. You've got this Gecko going down in price a little bit. You've got plexes at very high price. You've got all of this volatility in PI at the moment. Very unusual for summertime, in my opinion. And then again, I would say my tip here, don't go overboard. Only invest with the is that you're definitely willing to spend on that. And if you're going too crazy with the volumes, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot eventually, because you are going to start to have an impact on that market as well. So keep that in mind if you're actually trying to make some moves on what you're seeing here in EVE Talk. And that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.